One of the most surprising reveals that we got in the latest Nintendo Direct was effectively Animal Crossing meets Pokemon. Now, this is a brand new Pokemon Spinoff game called Pokemon Pokopia, which is releasing in 2026. And effectively, for the first time, this is a Pokemon life sim decorator. Immediately just looking at this game, you'll probably be reminded of Animal Crossing New Horizons, and for good reason, because this takes so many elements from that game that it's actually crazy. For a long time, I've actually hoped that we would see an Animal Crossing and Pokemon crossover. I just feel like the two franchises go hand in hand. It could work so well, and that's effectively the closest we're ever going to get with this game. The premise is simple. You play as this human Ditto character, which is honestly a little bit creepy, I won't lie. And you start to build up a deserted island, where you can meet all kinds of different Pokemon that'll help you develop it into a paradise. Now, these Pokemon all have their own unique moves, and you can use them for specific purposes. So rather than having, say, the terraforming tools that you do in Animal Crossing New Horizons, it seems like you'll actually use your Pokemon to complete these tasks. They'll help teach you some cool moves. For example, Bulbasaur will teach you a move that will allow you to create grass, which is really neat, I think, and it actually makes sense in terms of Pokemon lore, rather than just slapping on decorating features that make no sense with Pokemon. Much like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games as well, these Pokemon can actually talk, so we will have interactions with them like we do our villagers in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, it's very early days and this is the first trailer we've gotten, so it's hard to tell how in-depth these interactions will be. I can't imagine it being nearly as in-depth as Animal Crossing, which already gets a bit of flack in terms of New Horizons and how much you can sort of interact with your villagers in that game. I feel like this game is going to be more focused on the decorating. But regardless, I feel like if you do love those features in Animal Crossing New Horizons, this is going to be a must-have game for you in 2026, especially whilst we are waiting for a new Animal Crossing game. Now, they didn't show off a ton in this trailer explicitly, but there are a ton of little things that they showed off without really mentioning it. For example, we can see that terraforming is very similar to Animal Crossing New Horizons, where you can mess with the water and the cliffs, you can, remove them, add new ones in. We also see farming elements, which is crazy, so I guess it's also kind of like Harvest Moon and such too, which is really interesting to think about. And it looks like you can create crops and such and harvest them. And there's also crafting as well. We can see the player place down a crafting table. So I'm guessing you will be able to craft lots of different furniture items, some of which we do actually see in this little screen. They also mentioned Pokemon homes. So like in Animal Crossing, you'll be able to go into the homes of your Pokemon villagers and meet up with them and chat. I'm honestly really surprised that they didn't just make an Animal Crossing and Pokemon crossover. Maybe there was some issues with this in terms of legality, because it's exactly what it feels like. Honestly, this barely feels like a Pokemon game, it feels much more like Animal Crossing, which is why I feel like a lot of Animal Crossing players are definitely going to want to try this. We can also see as well that there's just a lot of unique settings to enjoy. At the sort of end of the trailer, we get a look at some of the different areas of the island that you can explore and enjoy. And so it seems like it's actually going to be a very sort of diverse game with a lot of really cool areas to decorate and such that will go with your own style, just like we did in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now at this point, it's unknown whether the decorating options will be as in-depth and elaborate as New Horizons was. After all, that game had thousands and thousands of different items with all kinds of customization variants to get. So we don't really know if this is going to be a bit less than that. I'm assuming it will be, to be honest with you, because obviously Animal Crossing has built up after decades at this point. But it does seem like there is a lot from what we can already see. For example, at one point in the trailer, we even see them decorating the indoors of a house, which looks pretty sizable too, like some of the proper home upgrades in New Horizons. So that does make me think they're going to have a lot of different types of items for you to get. Of course, a lot of these are going to be Pokemon themed as well. For example, we can see some of these signs and bikes and such from Pokemon, as well as the Pokemon Center at one point, which my guess would be a similar building to things like Nook's Cranny in Animal Crossing, where, you know, you can go in there for some special purpose. I feel like there's quite a lot of overlap in the Pokemon and Animal Crossing community. Despite them being very different games at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who play both from experience. I myself am one of them. In fact, I was a Pokemon fan long before I was ever an Animal Crossing fan. And it does make me feel like a lot of the people who play Animal Crossing might actually start getting into Pokemon for the first time through this game, which is exciting to think about. We can also see that there are a lot of Pokemon from the different generations available within this trailer. It's not just Kanto Pokemon like we're kind of used to, so that means there should be a lot of these Pokemon villages for you to interact with. It'll be interesting to see whether they have personality types or if it's more individual for the character like it was in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. As you might know from those games, is very story driven, and one of the main sort of hubs is the little town you live in. And a lot of people have been pointing out that this game very much feels like you're creating that little town before the games actually start, which is really cute. So far, using context clues, I've counted at least 50 different Pokemon, but I'm guessing there will be hundreds in the game, to be honest with you. I can imagine they're going to go all out. I really doubt they'll add every single Pokemon, you know, like over 1,000 into this, especially as some just won't really thematically make sense, but I can imagine there being a lot of them at the very least, so that'll be kind of exciting, and it'll be fun to meet them, and maybe even hunt for them like you do with your villagers in the Animal Crossing games. Overall, I'm really excited for this. When I first saw it, I wasn't sure if this was going to be anything special or not, but I feel like this has the potential to be a ton of fun and definitely a game that you invest a lot of time into. I think if you are an Animal Crossing fan or a Pokemon fan or both, this is definitely a game to try out in 2026. So it's something. Currently, we do not have a more specific release date for when this is coming, but hopefully that will happen next year. They did just say available 2026, so I'm guessing it won't be early on, it won't be the springtime, but who knows, hopefully we get a date sooner rather than later. They have also confirmed that it will be exclusively for Nintendo Switch 2, so you will need a Switch 2 if you want to play this. With some of the sort of cozy games and such coming to Nintendo Switch 2, I do wonder if it will incentivize this sort of type of gamer to come over to the new console. It's definitely interesting to think about. So let me know your thoughts about this new game in the comment section down below. Are you going to give it a try? I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you made it to the end, be sure to comment Bob's Gang so I know you did. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe and turn on notifications for more.